It's the Underdogs back with you for another week. I'm Jordan Brenner, joined as always by Peter Keating. Peter, did you enjoy the sports equinox the other night with all four major sports in action?
It was one of those, is it the day of the year where you can, if you line up a hard-boiled egg, you can get it to stand on its end? Because all the four leagues, major leagues are playing on the same night.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Yes, yes, Jordan, I'm loving it. I'm loving it. I'm not loving it. My own teams are sucking eggs to continue the theme, but
Wow.
that's okay. It's okay. It's okay. We're deep into a lot of it.
All right. Well, a little bit later in the show, we're going to get into another big week in college football. We've got the Penn State Ohio State matchup, but also some underdog angles we want to hit and a conference comparison that we've been talking about that I think people will really enjoy. But first, let's jump back into the NFL, Peter, and let's head west. Since this is the Underdogs, I want to talk about two teams that have surpassed expectations, at least in the minds of this show host, and that's in the AFC West. The Broncos are 5-3. The
Mm-hmm.
Chargers are 4-3. I think on this show I advocated for taking under the Broncos win total for the season. Man, was I wrong? It just shows again, don't bet against Sean Payton, but that speaks to a larger trend. I think there's a lot of similarities between these teams. They all almost feel like cousins, and that is they are doing this with excellent coaching, good defense, and efficient offense that runs the football. So, both these teams have realistic shots at the playoffs now.
Not only that, Jordan, neither one of them has been particularly lucky. Sometimes you get these teams that bounce up and, it's a little bit of smoke and mirrors. But if you look at Denver's schedule, they lost to the Steelers by 7. They lost to the Chargers by 7, but they've had a couple of blowout wins. You look at the Chargers. They lost by 2 to Arizona, by 7 to the Chiefs, a couple of blowout wins. These teams actually have expected win totals a little bit above where they are. So they are actually what their record says they are. They're good, and they've gotten good surprisingly and quickly. I went on this show and said Denver could go 0-17. So, and the race between you and me to to underestimating these teams, I think I may even have you beat. Yes, but they're both actually really good.
It's hard to go 0-17 when you're playing defense like these two teams. First of all, the Chargers first in the NFL, allowing 13 points per game. The Broncos are third, allowing 15 points per game. It's going to be really interesting to watch them against each other, watch them against Kansas City. But good defense isn't generally a fluke, as you said. So it's a little bit of old school football. The Chargers have rediscovered J.K. Dobbins. Javonte Williams for the Broncos looks healthier after a year later, recovered from his devastating knee injuries. And then we should also talk about the quarterbacks. We knew Justin Herbert. They both have an Oregon quarterback. Justin Herbert, we knew.
Yeah.
But man, Bo Nix is really starting to come around as a rookie.
All right. Let's focus on what's really, really good. Denver's defense has added an expected 69 points to the team this year. That is by far the best in the league. It's an astonishing number. Look, Bo Nix is throwing for barely 5 yards per attempt. He's got 8 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. He's looked better. Peyton's managed him well, but he is dinking and dunking while the Denver defense is blitzing and what rhymes with blitzing? Blitzing and schmitzing. Yeah, blitzing and schmitzing. I mean, yeah. They're second in the league in blitz rate, and sometimes that means they're just aggressive. But no, in this case, they're 4th in the league in pressure, 2nd in the league in sacks. I mean, they're getting results from pressuring opposing quarterbacks. This is where the key is.
Can I push back on you just for a moment? That I get it. Bo Nix is not out there throwing the ball like Patrick Mahomes, but he just came off a 28 of 37, 284-yard passing performance. He's also running very well in most games. And the Broncos, these are their point totals the last 4 games. Okay, they scored 34 on the Raiders. They scored 16 on the Chargers, but by the way, that's more than they're giving up on average. 33 on the Saints and 28 on the Panthers. Not great opponents other than the Chargers, but
no,
those are some
not great opponents. Jordan, the Broncos are 27th in expected points added per play in the passing game. 27th. They're okay, but I think if you're focusing on the quarterback and even on the coaching a little, overlooks that they are outstanding on special teams as well. They're outstanding in punt and kickoff coverage. Will Lutz hasn't missed a field goal. This is the way they rebuild quickly, not by drafting Bo Nix, but by investing in cheap but really efficient, high leverage players in special teams and defense. I mean,
I'm
I
just
think that's just
saying.
what the numbers are.
I'm just saying they may have found a quarterback, and as he gets more comfortable, he may be more of a reason for them to win games rather than just manage games. Meanwhile, we know,
By the way, whoever thought we'd be saying the same thing about Riley Dixon?
and look, we
Yeah.
know the Chargers have a quarterback who can win them games. That is why their rebuild, such as it is fascinating to me compared to ones you usually see, because they made this change with a young franchise quarterback still in place. Now,
Yes.
they gutted the rest of the offense, right? But it's like you've got this house with this incredible foundation, and they're just reupholstering everything. And he is there. He is capable of so much more. He's had to go to more of a manager role at times this year because they've been so focused on running the ball. But you can also see as Lad McConkey develops more, and a big touchdown last week, and as they grow into this new regime, I'm sure they will eventually open it up more because he's capable of that.
Yes, and look, first of all, he hasn't made many mistakes at all. He has one interception all season long. Now I know his passing attempts are down, but one interception. The team has 6 interceptions, 10 fumble recoveries. The team defense has been astounding. I just want to note though that there are teams that have stopped the Chargers' rushing attack. When they played Arizona, you could see Arizona bringing 3 big interior linemen in and 2 rushers. They got 5 guys on the line. They essentially shut down the Chargers' running game. Herbert's going to have to do more. I mean, the great news is that he's obviously up to it. I mean, they conservative at the beginning of the year. We're actually going to get to see, especially with the Chargers, they don't have to worry about bad weather forcing them to be more conservative, right? We're going to see them open it up, and Herbert is going to be, I think, the key factor in determining which one of these 2 teams goes further as the year goes on.
Well, you mentioned the Cardinals, so let's stay in the West. Every year there's one funny division. Last week we talked about the dominant division of the NFC North, right, where everybody was over 500. Well, here's a division where everybody's exactly 500 except for the Rams, who are half a game below 500.
Right.
That's right. The 49ers, Seahawks, Cardinals, all 4-4. The Rams are 3-4. Look, obviously we all thought and maybe think that the 49ers are the class of this division, but they're so banged up. How do you make sense of what's going on in this?
Well, you know what's
group?
even wilder is that because of tiebreakers, if the season ended right now, Tampa Bay would be in the playoffs, and all those teams would not, except whoever wins the division. So they're actually in some danger. I mean, unless one of these teams breaks out and wins the division, they're in danger of winding up in that 8-9, 8-9 to 10-7 muck where they could lose out on the playoffs entirely. I think it's still San Francisco's division to lose, just because. As the annoying guy who used to win my fantasy league would say, when I said I couldn't decide which running back to play, he'd always say the problem is you have too much talent. They actually do have too much talent. The talent,
not healthy talent, Peter, not healthy talent, and life is not going to get much easier for. They have a bye coming up. They're going to have to win the 2 games after that, at Tampa and home against Seattle, because then they go to Green Bay and to the Bills after that.
Yes.
And if those could easily be losses, and even if they win the Bucks Seahawks games, they could be 6-6 and looking at needing a really strong finish. So I don't know, man. How many key players can you lose before you start to worry?
That's the thematic question of the Niners season. We're getting to the point in the season where you can now circle incredibly crucial games coming up, right? Niners Seattle and Niners Green Bay are going to be 2 of the biggest games in the whole regular season coming up after their bye. You're right about that.
I think we both would put money on the Niners to win the division still, in spite of all that we're saying. Which of the 3 other teams has the best chance to upset them in your mind?
I think Arizona has really intriguing upside, and it's just starting to hit it. They're a crazy, almost random team, but Murray is looking pretty good, and he's really good at his best. And Marvin Harrison's looking great, and I think they're going to be able to keep putting points up on the board.
I'm going to say don't sleep on the Rams. They've got their receivers back. Obviously, Matthew Stafford's an excellent quarterback, and they're a well-coached team. I hated their defense earlier in the year, but they just, they just won a 2015 game against the Raiders, holding any team below 20 with that defense was an accomplishment. And their win against the Vikings, 30-20, against a an offense that looked like they were just going to tear them apart in the first half. That showed some signs. Big game at Seattle this week. Then home against the Dolphins, at the Patriots, home against the Eagles, at the Saints. They can get this one on the road. They can make some hay there.
Yeah, their schedule's pretty good. I was going to be a smartass and say whoever has the most games against the NFC East is the favorite to win, but I don't know that many of them have a lot of games. But the Rams schedule looks gauntletable, doesn't it?
Well, and the Seahawks already lost at home to the Giants, so I think that's disqualifying, right?
Strip their medals from the podium.
Seriously. So I guess the bigger question is this. Okay, I think we did pick the Niners under, what was it, 11 and a half or 12 and a half
Yeah,
wins?
because it's hard to win 12 games every
Right.
year is our basic reason, and they had great injury luck until this year. Yeah.
So I guess sitting at 4-4, if I gave you over under, will they win 10? Will they win more than 10 games at this point? And they finish 7-2 or something.
I think they're a good candidate to win 10 games. I tried to count it out this morning.
Okay.
I think 10 is where they're going to end up, assuming, they play well with the guys they have left.
Got it. Well, Peter, shifting from the Underdog division, it's time for our Underdog of the Week, sponsored by our partners at DraftKings Sportsbook, where new customers can bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Stay in on the action and use your $200 in bonus bets to bet anytime touchdowns on DraftKings, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. If sports betting is not yet available in your state, don't worry. You can still join us for all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have the shot to win cash prizes. So, Peter, I want to go back to the future with a little trend that we've identified all season and has been very kind to us. In the NFL this year, dogs of 6 or more points are 21, 10, and 2 against the spread. That's 67.7%, a return on investment of 27.7%, thanks to the amazing tools of Bet Labs at the Action Network. And Peter, we've got a 6-pack of teams that fit the bill this week. Okay, so let's run through those games, then we can talk about what we can do with that. You got the Broncos, who we just talked about, getting 9 points at Baltimore. You got the Jaguars going to Philly, getting 7.5 on the road. Dolphins getting 6.5 points at Buffalo. The Colts are getting 6 at Minnesota. The Raiders are getting 7.5 at the Bengals, and your Carolina Panthers are getting 7 points against the New Orleans Saints. And before we go into other options, if I have to pick one of those games, I know you think I'm crazy. I'm taking the Panthers at home, getting a touchdown against a Saints team that might have you at quarterback at this point.
Well, if they had me at quarterback, I still might be able to outperform Bryce Young. I think Carolina is so broken. Every time I try to look up statistics, statistics are supposed to take a bell curve shape. Jordan, they're distorting the curve. They're all the way down. They're worse than any team in the league by a huge margin. And it just makes them hard to, every team you mentioned is a favorite there. You can imagine in this year blowing a big game. I mean, there's compression in this league. There's chaos. There's injuries. There's young players developing, which is inherently unpredictable. There's no dominant, there's no Golden State Warriors of the league this year. So it really is any given Sunday this year. I'm not sure that doesn't, I think you can still profit by, picking up whatever defense is playing Carolina in your fantasy league every week, because they're that bad.
Yeah, well, this New Orleans defense has looked pretty darn bad every week, too. And I'll say this, the Saints are still banged up. Marshawn Lattimore now has a hamstring injury. Juwan Johnson left with a concussion. So if I have to back one of these teams, I'm getting the Panthers at home +7 against a mediocre opponent. Fine. Now
that's fine. You know what Mom used to say? In a game with no quarterbacks, bet the underdog. It's like a game winner in the middle of a hurricane. I mean, okay, fine.
So that's our Underdog of the Week. But real quick, look, we did a crazy money line parlay of these teams earlier in the year, and as we know, we were 4-0 heading into the last game. We hedged. If you want to go nuts and do a money line parlay, you can get plus 243,709 odds at DraftKings by taking all 6 of these teams to win. I don't think you'll win, but for $10, that might be fun. More realistically, you can ride with the trend and blindly bet all 6 of these underdogs. Hope for, say, a 4-2 week and enjoy the profits.
Now, if people do the parlay and they win the first 1 or 2 games, can they contact you personally to figure out hedging strategies to make sure they end up ahead on the total?
Yes, my contact info is Peter Keating NJ on Twitter. Anyway, that's your underdog of the week. Ride it. Go for just the Panthers if you want. Parlay some of these if you want, or just bet all 6 underdogs and hope for a winning week. And as we said, Underdog of the Week was sponsored by DraftKings, an official partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. New customers use my promo code Underdogs and bet just $5 on any wager and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. That's promo code Underdogs only at DraftKings Sportsbook.